If you've ever been told that you're too much, too sensitive, too emotional, like you feel things so deeply, like that's a bad thing, this video is for you. And I want you to know this. You're not too sensitive. You are just highly attuned. You just learn to be so in tune with your environment to the point everything might seem too overwhelming, perhaps, too overstimulating, or like feeling everything all at once. And I want you to know that's not a flaw, that's a gift. And today I wanted to help you understand why so many women become highly sensitive women and why that's not a flaw, but rather a superpower. If you're new here, hi, my name is Chrisana. I'm basically a psychological life coach. If you've been here before, hi, welcome back. And yeah, let's get into the video. Let me start with something a bit personal. I myself have been called my whole life too much, too sensitive, and like I'm too emotional, too reactive, too even dramatic, even too intense. For years, I internalized that as a flaw. And because other people were projecting that into me and I was accepting that because this is what I knew, I internalized this as shame inside of me. I thought that something was wrong with me for a lot of years. I didn't know how to turn that into my superpower because it was my superpower. It wasn't a flaw, but I did thought it was a flaw. And so I did what so many highly sensitive women do. I intellectualized this part of me. I tried to become less sensitive, less emotional, easier to handle. And when we internalize things, we don't just intellectualize them. We don't just try to push them away from us. This is the tip of the iceberg. Down there's a part of us that has been shamed and has been wounded. And until we teach our bodies, our minds, our souls as a whole that it's okay to be emotional, it's okay to be sensitive, it's okay to be too much for other people, and that's who we are, we're gonna keep pushing away this part of us, which is a gift. It's not a flaw, but thinking that this is a flaw, right? And so when I try to push away this part of me, this sensitive part of me, I try to become somebody else. I try to become less sensitive, more rational, easier to handle. But here's what I realized after accepting this part of myself as just sensitive, neutrally seeing that and then applying compassion to relate to it. That my sensitivity wasn't a personality issue. In fact, it wasn't an issue at all. It was an adaptation, a childhood adaptation. It was a skill that my inner child developed early in her life to literally survive. Because in order to survive, she had to have a connection with her caregivers. And she needed to ensure connection with her caregivers because they weren't responsive to her at all times, right? And that's why a lot of people think they don't have trauma because it doesn't have to be anything dramatic. Sometimes it's in the small things that don't happen during our childhood, not because of the things that do happen in our childhood. So my inner child had to learn to read the room before the room could even read her, because this was a way of surviving, because this way she could predict her caregiver's moods and adapt to it so she could survive. And when I realized it a few years ago, that changed so much within me, because I was, for the first time in my life, free from other people's expectations of me. I was allowed, or rather I allowed myself through this liberation to be who I wanted to be and to be okay with that. And that's such a powerful decision to make for your life. And one other point is that this is not about blaming our caregivers. This is about understanding where it comes from and then taking full responsibility for our lives. This is not about blaming anybody. But I want to dive a bit deeper in terms of where it comes from, because the truth is highly sensitive women weren't born a problem. Most of them, as I just mentioned, were trained from their environment to be hyper-attuned. They were adapting to their environment. They were just reacting to it so they could learn how to survive emotionally. It could be also physically. For a lot of people nowadays, it might be emotionally only. It depends if you experience some type of abuse. But this is a universal truth, because children, they learn how to react within their environments. And the first environment that they learn everything from is their family, right? So that's also where the subconscious work comes from, right? We absorb everything from the age 0 to 7, and it goes straight to our subconscious. And then as adults, we just see the behavioral pattern. We don't see the actual scene, where it comes from, the actual words, where it comes from, or anything like that. We just see the result of our subconscious beliefs that we absorbed like a sponge in our childhood. So as children, we learn that if I can understand them, I'll be safe. If I can have any type of connection with them, I'm gonna stay safe. I'm gonna survive. If I can anticipate their mood, I won't get hurt. Because for a child, connection means survival. Any type of connection means survival. We are one of the species that cannot survive of their own. Babies literally cannot survive if they are not cared for. So your sensitivity is literally a survival response. It's what you learn to do in order to survive. It's not a flaw, but rather a form of intelligence. So your nervous system learned, let me feel everything so I can protect her. Let me feel everything so I can keep her alive in any sort of way. Because the priority of our nervous system, of our minds, is to keep us alive, not to thrive. And so it becomes our own responsibility to create a path to change our lives in order to thrive instead of surviving. So here's where it gets really interesting. The same sensitivity that kept you alive as a child now becomes hyper-attunement as an adult. And then hyper-attunement becomes people-pleasing, emotional caretaking, self-abandoning, which is the root of all of that. Over-explaining, walking on eggshells, and prioritizing everybody else's needs besides your own. Not because you're weak, but because as a child you learn how to tune into others instead of learning how to tune into yourself firstly. Instead of learning how to fill your cup firstly and then passing that cup to the others. This is why so many highly sensitive women struggle within their romantic relationships, because they become so deeply attuned to their partner needs while forgetting their own needs. And I'm not saying it's bad in a relationship to attune to your partner needs. This is actually really healthy. But when you do that at the expense of your own needs, that's not healthy. That's self-abandonment. And that creates a lot of resentment in relationships. So until you learn how to fill your own cup firstly and then give to others, you're gonna keep feeling this resentment. And then you might wonder why that kind of relationship didn't work, when during this whole relationship, you just been self-abandoning and not showing your true self, not allowing yourself to be truly seen, because there is so many other layers to it, right? Being highly sensitive towards other people's feelings but not your own. And forgetting your own power, forgetting how much of a gift it is to be a highly sensitive in a world that numbs their feelings. And this is not just a mindset issue. You can keep journaling, understanding where it comes from, which is incredibly important. But this is actually a nervous system imprint. Until you embody a change, until you take the action to change that, you're gonna stay trapped. You're gonna stay trapped in this loop of being sensitive towards other people and empathetic, and not to yourself, not to your own needs. And I've seen this in so many women, including myself. I used to do that in relationships, and it cost me so much. It cost me my energy, it cost me my inner resources, it cost me basically my whole light. It was not just taking away, I was freely giving it away. Again, it's not bad to give your light to people, to give to people, but when you are not able to receive help, when you're not able to give help to yourself firstly, but rather just freely giving to other people, that creates a lot of other issues. That's why as a highly sensitive woman, you might not be feeling like you are being seen or heard, even though others around you feel extremely seen and heard by you. I see you. I've been there. I also think that sensitivity is one of the most beautiful gifts a woman can have. It makes you intuitive, empathetic, creative, and deeply compassionate. But like with every gift, it has its own shadows, if not channeled in an aligned way to you, channeled in a way that you're not self-abandoning yourself. And the shadow is not being too sensitive. The shadow is, again, self-abandoning. So absorbing other people's emotions, over-functioning emotionally in relationships, being hyper-vigilant perhaps, struggling to say no when you mean no, carrying so much emotional labor for others, and essentially losing yourself in the process of it all. Losing connection to yourself because of what others might need of you, even though they are perfectly capable of giving that to themselves. My work with women is never about minimizing or eliminating or getting rid of your sensitivity. Why would anybody would want get rid of their gift, their intuition, their creativity, their compassion to the world? No. We are not repressing your sensitivity. We are bringing that to the light along with the shadow, which might be a bit uncomfortable in the beginning, but once you go through the stage of being uncomfortable with your shadow, even a bit of pain, you feel liberated for your whole life. It's something that stays with you for your whole life. It's an inner resource that you transmuted yourself, because yeah, I guide you, I get you there, but it's already within you. It's a gift you can give to yourself. This is what we do inside Metamorphosis, my psychological coaching container. Because the real work is learning how to retrain your system so that your sensitivity can operate not from survival, but from thriving. And when you build this inner safety, this inner sanctuary, your sensitivity goes from being a burden to being a compass for your life. And the truth is, so many women who come to me, they say to me, I've done the work, I've done the therapy, I've done the journaling. I understand myself so well, but they still feel stuck. And this used to be me too. Even though I understood the patterns, even though I have done therapy, I couldn't work through that. I couldn't understand how to get into that space of being embodied into my sensitivity, into actually admiring my sensitivity and not seeing that as a burden anymore. And this is because self-awareness helps you understand the pattern, but it doesn't actually change the pattern. Self-awareness is really important. It's the first step in healing any kind of wound, as I always say. But if we stay there, if we stay in this self-awareness loop, we stay stuck and we don't actually make a meaningful change in our lives. So to rewire this pattern, you need psychological integration, somatic safety, emotional processing, unconscious repatterning, and relational healing. This is what creates transformation, not just insight. If this resonates, if you are someone who feels deeply, if you are someone who cares deeply, senses everything before others do, and if you are tired of caring everyone but yourself, if you are tired of being the strong one, if you are tired of trying to heal alone, this is exactly what we do inside Metamorphosis, which is my psychological coaching container. This is an integrative approach. We take you from shame, self-doubt, not trusting yourself, criticizing yourself, to being compassionate, curious, trusting, which is the foundation of confidence in life, and really standing the ground beneath you, really being a self-led woman, being someone who leads herself into her new life. This container, it's also about transitions. And if you're already going through a big life transition, this is the change you need. And if you're not going through a big life transition, this might be the change you've been looking for. We work from the psychological, emotional, somatic, unconscious, relational, and identity level. It's not surface level. It's not a quick fix. We go deep. So only if you're ready, come join us. I will leave the link down below. We don't eliminate your sensitivity. We help you embodied with strength, with compassion, curiosity, and self-leadership. And I want to leave you with this. You were never too sensitive. You were adapting, surviving, and protecting yourself the only way you knew, with the tools you had at that time in your life. And remember, you were just a child. You are not supposed to find tools for yourself as a child. You are supposed to be given those tools. And now it's time to let your sensitivity evolve from survival to expression, to intuition, to self-compassion, to creation, to your greatest gift. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.